Okay, I have a confession to make. I was terrified of movies until I was about 13 years old. The first movie I ever saw was the Care Bear movies, and when that book opened and those evil eyes were in there, I ran screaming out of the theater. Same thing happened to me in E.T., and then my parents just gave up after they took me to see Back to the Future, and Christopher Lloyd scared me. And I still have never watched a scary movie in my entire life. So how is it that I look forward to Halloween each year? I love costumes as long as they're not too gory. I like fall festivals and trick-or-treating and pumpkin patches. Even though the stores and the streets are filled with all that gory stuff that I just can't stand, that's not what scares me about Halloween. Stay tuned and I'll let you know what the AAP, or American Academy of Pediatrics, wants you to know so that you can keep your kids safe this Halloween.
When the doctor says my child has a condition, I'll learn more at my pocket pediatrician.
I've never liked working on Halloween. Most of the kids in America are going to be running around on dark streets in costumes that limit their visibility, with no impulse control because they're out to get sugar and candy as they trick or treat. Just like 4th of July makes me instantly think about firework injuries, Halloween instantly makes me think about kids getting hit by cars. I mentioned in my pedestrian safety video that kids are 4 times more likely to be hit and killed by a car on Halloween night than any other night of the year. This is the first and most important danger that you need to know about Halloween night. This graph shows the number of kids who are hit on every night throughout the year. Do you see that big red column in the middle? That's Halloween night, the most dangerous night of the year when it comes to kids getting hit by cars. There are a lot of factors that play into why kids get hit by cars on Halloween night. Obviously, they're out to trick or treat, so there's millions of kids out there running around in the dark. Their vision is limited by their costumes and their masks, and the costumes can make them trip. They're running from house to house to ask for candy, which makes them more impulsive and unpredictable. Their costumes can also make them less visible to cars if they're dark and not reflective. Also, Halloween isn't just about kids. It's the 3rd most common night of the year for adults to get DUIs. Adults are driving around in costumes and going to their own parties and drinking. And they're on the road with all these costume sugar-crazed kids. It's just a recipe for disaster. So does this mean that you need to keep your kids at home on Halloween? No. No one is saying that, but the AAP does have a lot of recommendations on how to keep your kids safe on Halloween. So let's start with the tips that keep your kids safe from cars. Number 1, costumes should be brightly colored or reflective, or you should add reflective tape to them. I will add to that to definitely put the tape on the treat bags as well, because you know they're going to hang on to those. So you definitely want something that they're holding or wearing to be reflective. Number 2, bring a flashlight, both to increase your visibility and also to light the path where the kids are walking. Number 3, parents or a responsible adult should accompany all kids wherever they're going. The AAP recommends parental supervision of all kids under 10 in traffic, and keep in mind that on Halloween, even the most responsible and mature 10-year-old might get caught up in all the excitement and make bad decisions. Number 4, if your older child is going without you, plan their route in advance, make sure it's well lit and with sidewalks, and discuss the time that they're going to be home. Also try to give them a phone or a device with which they can contact you in case they get into trouble. Number 5, choose well-lit streets or sidewalks and don't let your children run through yards or alleyways. The last one about cars is number 6, cross streets in groups only and only cross in intersections and using crosswalks if they're available. Don't let kids step out from between parked cars. Don't assume that you have the right of way even if you think you should. And don't think that just because one car stopped, another car is not going to try to get around that car, or that cars might be coming from the opposite direction. So that's road safety. Now let's talk about the costumes themselves. Like I said, costumes should be bright and reflective. We've spent some time in the costume aisles, and very few costumes actually are bright and reflective, especially for boys who are often the ones who are running around impulsively. In my experience, I found most of the superhero and ninja costumes to be very dark and nothing reflective on them. Those morph costumes are probably the worst thing I could find in terms of visibility. With 4 kids, even though they're young, I've had enough drama in the costume aisle to know that it isn't easy. You can make life a little easier by adding reflective tape to any costume that isn't already reflective. I'll leave it to your family to figure out the rest of the details about the costume. I always put light-up necklaces on my kids and give them those little light-up pumpkin wands to carry, but I've noticed that half the time they throw the wands down or forget about them, and the necklaces tend to die before we even get home. At least with the tape, if you put it on the front and the back, they're less likely to lose it or have it fall off. The other thing you definitely want to put reflective tape on is their treat bags, because you know there's nothing that's going to make them let go of those. So that's going to be something they'll have with them that could make them a little more visible. Masks can limit vision, so consider using a safe makeup if possible so that your child doesn't lose out on the peripheral vision. Use non-toxic makeup and test it out before Halloween to make sure there aren't any reactions. Hats should fit correctly so they don't slip down over the eyes. Costumes that are too long should be hemmed so that kids aren't tripping over them. Flammability is another important component of safety when it comes to costumes. Very often a lot of people have bonfires outside or tiki torches or things to make their lawns look cool. And most of those costumes are made out of that nylon stuff that's just going to go shooting up in flames. If the costumes aren't flame retardant, serious burns can occur. Examine swords, canes, and other types of sticks and make sure that there are no sharp or pointy edges. Don't let your children run around with those pointed up in the air because they can seriously get hurt or they can hurt another child. Never use decorative contact lenses without a prescription. Many cheap colored lenses are sold around Halloween, and the packaging often says that they're safe and that you don't need an eye doctor exam. This is actually illegal and it's very dangerous. These lenses can cause pain, infections, and serious disorders of the eye, some of which can cause permanent blindness. If it's not worth it to you to go see an eye doctor for this costume, then it's not worth losing your vision just for a Halloween costume for one night. What about pumpkin carving? There's probably nothing cuter than those pictures of little kids and their pumpkins, but when you think about it, is their parent handing them a knife and a giant gourd and letting them go? That can actually be really dangerous and kids can get cut pretty easily. Consider using some of those decoration kits or letting your kids paint the pumpkin or use the stickers on them. Or if your child really wants to carve a pumpkin, you can have them draw the outline of the shapes and then you carve the pumpkin and give it back to the child. Also, think about the candle or how you're going to light your pumpkin. Consider just sticking a glow stick inside or one of those LED candles. If you do use an actual flame, make sure that the pumpkin is on a sturdy stand. It's not going to get knocked over and it's away from curtains and anything else that could be flammable. Also, check your pumpkin frequently for rot and mold because depending on the climate, sometimes they rot really quickly and you don't want your child exposed to mold. What about preparing your house for Halloween? First thing you want to do is make sure you clear away any trip hazards like hoses, sprinklers, and wet leaves so that kids have a safe path to walk on to get to your home. Make sure your home is well lit so that trick-or-treaters know that they're welcome and also so that they can see and get around. And if you have pets, you probably want to restrain them so they're not trying to jump all over trick-or-treaters every time the doorbell rings. What about the candy? Because that's really what Halloween is all about for most people. When you were a kid, did your parents check your candy for razor blades and tiny little microscopic holes where somebody might have injected deadly drugs? Mine did. I even remember taking our candy to the hospital one year where they actually did x-rays for free on it because it was kind of a community service since so many people were worried about this razor blade and the candy phenomenon that they thought was happening. As a mom, I've never actually done this for my kids. We've only ever trick-or-treated at homes where we know, and I don't think anybody's trying to drug my children or cut their tongues with razor blades. But it is a good idea to at least take a quick look over the candy, make sure there's nothing suspicious or anything that looks like it's gone bad or spoiled or anything. While my kids don't have any food allergies, we've always participated in the Teal Pumpkin Project. With so many kids who have food allergies out there, we want to just make sure that they have a safe place where they can enjoy the fun too. Basically what I did was just buy one of those foam pumpkins at a craft store and spray paint it teal. And then I cut off the top and I filled in the middle with all kinds of non-food treats like stickers, pencils, all that little junk you usually take home as party favors. So that way kids who have food allergies know they have a safe place and they can come and pick out something fun also. If your child does have food allergies, there are some communities where you can go online and see a map of all the homes who are participating in the Teal Pumpkin Project so that you know the homes that are going to be safe for them to get treats. The other consideration with the candy is obviously all the sugar. Make sure your children brush their teeth really well. Also, on November 1st, I always get a slew of kids complaining of belly pain, and most of the time it's because they've gorged themselves on candy the night before. We usually give our kids a couple of days to pick out their favorite treats, and then we take the rest and donate it to a charity that sends it to our troops overseas or to find some other sort of charity for it. Also, I found that making our kids eat a full dinner before we go trick-or-treating will limit the tummy ache and limit the quantity of what they're going to consume on Halloween night. So maybe try to get something healthy in them before they head out for the evening. I also found that helped with our meltdowns later in the evening as well. So back when I was a kid, Halloween safety just meant you had to check all the candy for razor blades, but now it's a little bit more complex. The most important thing is making sure your kids don't get hit by cars. Just consider the safety measures and all the elements of this fun, crazy night, and hopefully your biggest problem is going to be a bellyache on November 1st from all the sugar. This is Dr. Lili with My Pocket Pediatrician. Don't forget to hit that little red subscribe button down there so you don't miss out on new content. What did I forget? Please comment below, let me know what you think, and thanks for stopping by. Happy Halloween.